Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The
This
Offspring.
is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Lab.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Krista
This is
Vernoff.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey,
This is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Dominic Santana, co-star of the new hit show Unsolved on USA, and this is the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Man, oh man, we are sitting here, as you said, with Dominic Santana. You can find Dominic on Twitter at Dominic Santana, and then on Instagram, where he's more active, official Dom Santana, and that's where you can grab a hold of him. He is a super cool dude. We've been sitting here talking and eating. We're at Aroma in Studio City. Big shout to those guys and thank you. It's Friday afternoon. The sun is up. It's Southern California, so the weather is nice. There's a nor'easter. Yeah, we had a couple of days of rain. Oh yeah, that's right. You guys have more rain than we did. Orange County, it missed all of us down there.
Oh, wow.
But we're also not up in the Northeast where they're getting pounded for the fourth time with the big storm. So we're down here Hollywood style enjoying ourselves. You've played Suge Knight a couple of times now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a potential third role coming up in the same thing?
There is.
Oh, man.
There is. Not at liberty to divulge just yet, but there is another opportunity on the table.
All right. Let me back up real quick and just say this. Thanks to Hilliard Guess. He runs the Screenwriters Rant Room podcast. You guys should absolutely listen to that just on the strength, but also Dom, that's where we got Dom from. I heard you on there, and I'm like, this is so good. All your stories are so great, and it's fascinating. Yeah, they are great. So definitely shout out to Hilliard, support him, and go to Hilliard's show to hear more about it, or YouTube, where you've done a lot of interviews about Suge Knight, because we're going to cover some of that, but we're going to get past that and talk about what you're doing next here primarily. But I do want to start with some of your great stories, like your break on. So you're a 6'5" dude. You are not tiny. You're never going to be tiny. So
right.
When you come out to Hollywood, you got the it factor in your pocket, but you still got to break out. And someone says, hey, we need a guy to be a bodyguard, and you're already an extra. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, bam, now you're officially an actor. Kind of give us that story, because it's such a great one. And then you said that happened to you another time. So just back to back, tell us both of them, because this is what it's all about.
Well, that particular situation with Dawson's Creek, I started my career in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was at a time where, North Carolina, had its incentive, and it was going really strong. So although Wilmington, anybody that's ever been, Wilmington is not a big town.
Right.
But I call it the big little town the little big town, because it may be little, but so much was happening, especially between, or at least up until about 2011, 2012.
Right.
So Dawson's Creek was one of the shows that was being filmed there. And I was an extra on Dawson's Creek. And on this particular episode, there's a guy named Tony. I wish I could remember his last name, but he used to work for Fincannon and Associates. And they did the extras casting at the time for Dawson's Creek, as well as, other casting. Tony and I would always talk. We got cool, built a rapport. He was always like, hey, if I ever get an opportunity to, get you in there, at least a line or something, I'll definitely do it. So I was like, cool, and a while went by after we had that conversation. But then the opportunity came. We were shooting this episode. Tony actually had a line, and that they gave him a line in that, and he was playing the front doorman. The scenario was that Dawson was too young to get in, but he was visiting his girlfriend in Boston, who had two other girls with her. They were old enough, so they go in and they pass, and Dawson gets held up by my friend Tony. While they're being held up, the girls are just kind of in the back, not really having too much to do. The director is like, this just isn't working for me. Like, we need, it was like, you see, we have the girls, because it was like this long flight of stairs,
Yeah.
And not like a stairway in a building, but it was like a really broad, it was outside. So it was like a really broad, load of stairs for whatever reason. And it went up to the second level where all these, buildings were where the club was supposed to be. He's like, this doesn't work. We need another bouncer. The girls are just kind of stuck up there, standing there doing nothing. And so then they went and started, looking into the extras, because of course we're in the middle of filming.
Yeah.
It's like 10 at night. they don't have time to go and do a casting and all
Right.
that stuff. So my good friend Tony, he followed through with what he said he would do, and he was like, well, hey, actually, you got the perfect guy here on set today, as he's
That's
with the
a matter of
extras.
fact, yeah.
So, and at that time, I had just come from bouncing in clubs. They come to me and they're like, hey, Tony said you were an actor. Can you say this line? So they give me a line, and I'm like, yeah, of course. So I deliver the line, and the director's like, right, perfect, that'll work. So they're like, change his paperwork, get him upstairs, etc. And so they changed my paperwork, and
What's that
I'm
mean?
lost. Well, I go from extra to now I have to have an actor's contract.
Right.
And so with an extra, you're basically just filling out their W-2 or their version of a W-2 and
Right.
call it a day.
Yeah.
And also a much different pay scale. So I got a large pay bump. They gave me the role, and the funny thing is I was so raw that I didn't know what was what,
Yes.
So I'm standing there. Everyone starts to, they make that fast decision, like, all right, great, perfect. All right, let's, turn around and let's do this, and that. So I'm still standing there, like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm lost. Like, what? What do
Do
I
I say
do?
my line now?
Right. They're doing all the measuring. They're putting down marks, and they call in second team. And I had no clue what second team was at that time. So second team comes in, and they find another, extra that's just my height. Funny thing, it was a white guy who was he was my height, but he was like maybe 100, 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Wasn't big at all.
That's funny.
So he comes over, to where I'm standing. They have him stand next to me. I guess because I wouldn't get out of the way. So, but I didn't know. I thought I'd just
I ain't
stand
moving.
there.
I'm working.
Right. I thought I'd just, stand my ass right here.
Uh-huh.
And so do what they asked me to do. And so he stands next to me. I'm looking at him, and I'm like, and Tony comes up to me, and I'm like, hey, they fired me already? Like, what the hell?
Yes.
Like, they literally just gave me the role. He was like, no, dude, you gotta, that's your stand-in. And I was like, what the hell is a stand-in?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? And he was like, with the actors, it's a stand-in, so you don't have to stand here and wait for them to measure and get their focusing right, lighting.
Right.
You can go relax with the actors while they do that. So when you come back, it's already measured, and they have everything set where they want you to be. So we do that. He's like, come with me. So he's got to like take me by my hand basically, and leads me up to where the actors are being in holding. Much different experience. It's warm in there. We had like one cold little building that we all hovered in and had shitty snacks, and it was just the worst.
You got the old red vines, not the soft
we're
ones.
Cattle. And you get up there, it's all like warm and bright, and all the good hot chocolate and
all
snacks.
of a sudden you're Mr. Santana.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of, hey,
that's exactly how it happens.
No, this is great. So these things, like I would like to relay some of my combat wartime stories, but we had this guy who's a minister, a pacifist, and a social scientist, and he's in a war zone with me, and I'm this spy guy trying to help him adjust to the army. And he's been there for a while. Keep this in mind, but he didn't know. So new unit comes in, and it's like, you don't know the dance, and I'm not in charge of this guy. He's more in charge of the research, and I'm just like I'm a field guy. I know field stuff. And so this major who runs this whole section, so there's probably 50 people in this room, and he looks at me, looks at Mark and goes, Mark, I'm going to need you to, do something that you don't normally do, and it's not in your purview. Mark goes, that's not really something that I do, and it's not in my purview. And I'm like, no. You say yes, sir. And he goes, no, we don't do that. He's Mark, I want you to do this thing that you don't normally do when it's not in your purview. That's what I want you to do because I'm the major. And this is his section. This is his shit, right? That's the boss. Mark's like, this is not, that's not, I'm not comfortable. And I'm like, Mark. So finally it comes down to like, I have to go, Mark is saying, yes, sir. We got it, and we're going to take care of it, because he just didn't know the rules. You go back later on, and you're like, hey, that's not what we do. You fix it later. But in that moment, when the boss is talking, everybody's nodding, yep, yes, sir, writing down what you're saying, and then you figure shit out, So it's kind of, it's funny to get your break this way, and then it happens again, and you accidentally got cast again, I guess, or...
Well, that was Dawson's Creek was my first major network, major anything.
Right.
The actual first role, so I would say that was actually like my second actual role. My first role was this god-awful little movie.
Yeah.
From way back.
Yeah.
It was like a $50,000 budget, which at that time was still okay in the indie world.
Sure.
I actually had a friend of mine who was working on this production for this project.
Yeah.
And he called me. He was like, dude, just come down here. It's somehow going to work in for you to get an audition.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though you're not on the list.
Right.
I'm like, hell yeah, let's work the plan. And I go down, I get down there, stop what I'm doing. I get down there, think you'll have your best shot auditioning for doorman.
Right.
Of this bar or whatever. I was like, yeah, but I don't want to be the doorman. I want to be like one of these leads, you know. I want to audition for one of the big roles.
Right.
And, you know, they're like, okay, bring him in. They don't know I'm not on the list, their casting list, you know, so, you know, randomly, fortunately, they didn't, like, check the list and like, wait a minute, who is this guy?
Right, yeah.
How did he get in here? My boy tries to convince me to just go for the doorman role. And, of course, you know, that's too simple for me, so
Right.
I go in there and audition, you know, for the door, because they're just assume like, oh yeah, like they get excited, like, oh, we might have this role finally. You know, I also wanted to audition for one of the larger roles, and they're kind of looking at me like, yeah, that's not how this works. You know, I'm here for the, you know, the doorman, but I was like, I really would like to, you know, audition for, you know, one of the other two roles. So they let me audition for these two other roles. Mind you, this is all a cold read because I'd never had those scripts.
Right.
And so,
you weren't supposed to be there in the first place.
Right, exactly. I hadn't done a movie at that point.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll take it. And then I did it. It was like a day of work.
People are dying for roles, and you're like,
right.
Screw it. I'll do it.
Yeah, I didn't get paid anything. It was a free gig. And I got copy and credit, and you know, worked one day, got my nose pulled with pliers.
Right. You get to say it's your first role, though, right? You know, it's a big deal already.
Exactly. I mean, I like having that conversation piece.
Yeah.
You know, instead of I got casted in as a lead in this Star Wars movie because I was sitting at a bar and the director saw me.
Yeah.
You know, that's a cool story too, but you know, I like my story.
I like look, the thing is we do on this show, we talk about like getting out there and getting the workshop. That's why we got a saw blade for our logo is you get in the workshop, stuff starts happening. People accidentally say yes when you ask them to come on the Break It Down show. Sometimes someone's like, you're the perfect guy for this thing, and you're like, yes, I am. That's right. Whatever that thing was you just said, that's me.
Matter of fact, I have an exclusive story for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
World exclusive. Go ahead.
I'd never tell this story, but it just reminded me because it's even funnier.
Nice.
It's a hilarious story. But I did that once again somewhere, but this time I didn't have a friend on the inside.
Yeah. You just worked your way in, huh?
So my cousin's also an actor. And shout out Robert Covington. At the time, there was this movie casting there. And my cousin's big into dancing, however, I'm not, obviously. So he would always, you know, he's tall like me, but he's a slim tall, you know, so he used to be real into dancing at that time. So he's like, oh, I got to be in this movie. But we haven't been submitted for it or anything. The auditions are today. So we did our research, made some calls. We found out where the auditions were.
Yeah.
Now, the movie's called White Men Can't Dance.
Okay.
Right? And oddly enough, it was created, produced, directed, and starred a white man who could dance. Peter, I can't remember. Sorry, Peter. I can't remember Peter's last name. But Peter, he used to be a break dancer back in the 80s, late 80s or whatever in New York. So he's actually phenomenal. So the weird thing is, so now Peter's like 55, 50, 55. He had this like white curly hair and this big white beard. You know, he looked like grandpa. But he still had the moves. So it would freak you out because you'd see this, you know, old, slim Santa Claus looking guy break out the moves, and he was badass. Yeah. That was his movie called White Men Can't Dance. Yeah. And it's obviously about them thinking, you know, he couldn't dance in this big competition to save a school or something. Right. My cousin and I show up to this place for the audition. So I go in, and, you know, of course they do this. They usually got the girl at the table with the sides and the list. Yeah. And we literally got there right at the end. I think it was the last person was going into the the audition space. Then it was just me and him, sitting there. She's like, "What's your name?" Tell Dominic Santana, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't have you on the auditioning list." I'm like, "How don't you have me on the audition list? You think I just show up here out of the blue for no reason for my own health? Like, my agent sent me out here. Why am I not on the list?" She's kind of freaking out, like, "Oh God, why aren't you on the list?"
Yeah.
She's looking through papers and stuff. And I'm like, "This is ridiculous. Like, what kind of operation is this?"
Right.
Start putting it back on them.
Yes.
That's the key. You always put it back on them.
Yeah.
What kind of operation you guys got going in? Small mistake, whatever. Say, "Who are you auditioning for?" I'm like, this one.
Yeah.
End up picking the host. And she was like, "Oh, okay." Gave me a little funny look. Okay. It's like, "Well, you need the sides or you got it memorized?" I was like, "No, I definitely need the sides." So I took the sides, sat down, started reading through it. Well, lo and behold, this is a dancing host.
Yeah.
Come to find out. So he, half of everything he does, he breaks out into a dance. It's a dance kind of, it's like Dance World. So he breaks out into a dance, and he's supposed to be like this revered dancer that everybody knows can dance. And so I'm like, how am I going to pull this off? Because I'm not a dancer.
Yeah.
And I'll just look stupid as hell, as big as I am.
Yeah. Yeah. You are a mammoth of a man.
Trying to go dancing around. So now I'm sitting there, in the main room trying to figure out how am I going to make this work.
Uh-huh.
No one's going to believe this.
Yeah.
And I don't dance. I don't even have moves to bust out, and surprise them, have them like, "Oh, didn't expect that."
Oh, yeah. Big man can move.
And so, because I've seen some big men, you're like, "How do you do that?"
Yeah.
I'm not one of them. They call me up, it's your turn to go in. So I go in there and I meet Peter for the first time. Going through the lines, I avoid the dancing part. So, of course, inevitably, Peter's like, that was really good, but you gotta do the dancing where the dance parts are. And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Does he have to dance?" He's like, "Yeah, it's kind of, he's like a big deal. That's why he's the host, because he's popular because of his dancing." And so I'm like, "Okay." So we're like, "Let's do it again, and add in the dance moves where they're supposed to be." Do it. So I'm doing the lines.
Yes.
And I start dancing. I start doing whatever I could think of.
Jesus Christ.
Needless to say, I'm sure it was horrible.
Yeah.
I never saw the video, but I saw Peter's face.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "It's not going to work out." And he's like, "Yeah, no. It's obvious you're not a real dancer. And I need a real dancer for that role."
Dancer.
And I was like, Damn it.
So close.
But he then turned, he said, as hilarious as that was, he's like, "There's actually a role of a friend of mine," because this was like loosely based on his life.
Uh-huh.
And so he's like, "There's a role that, of a security guard that was a friend of mine at the office I worked at during the time."
Yeah.
He was like, "You remind me so much of him, I'd like you to play him." And so I was like, Sure. I wasn't even supposed to be here, let alone get a role.
Right. I just pointed at the sheet and said that one.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how I got that role, and I get to do a few hilarious scenes in that movie.
So you've played Suge Knight a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I wanted to ask you, because I know you've got a production company, and I want to pitch you an idea for a show. And I think you're going to like this.
All right.
I think we should have you and R. Marcos Taylor do twin Sugs. And just do something. I don't know what. That's where my idea stops being funny. But I just wanted to point out that you guys have both played him more than once, and it would be funny to have some kind of alternate reality Suge Knight world. Where you guys are. Marcos played Suge Knight's character in a couple other movies. Anyhow, enough with that stuff. Let's do talk about Suge real quick, because he's alive. Mm-hmm. 2, he's a terrifying man to a lot of people. 3, he's a life sentence guy. So I don't know. It's probably hard for you to get a chance to talk to him and meet him. And I know you did a lot of research with videos and stuff, but how do you grapple with playing someone who, as of today, right now, is convicted of murdering someone and is in jail for the rest of his life, and certainly has a reputation of being at least reckless with his freedom? How do you find that spot? How do you get to it?
Just being honest as an actor. Especially being an actor going into playing a role of someone who exists.
Yeah.
Not only have they existed, but they still exist. They're still alive. You have to go at it pushing all the notions out of what you've heard in the media, or what people, people's ideas of who he is people that aren't around him or have never been around him,
Right.
have this idea of him. And just like a lot of the public does.
Yeah.
And so you really have to push all of that out and say, because I'm playing this person, I can't chastise or judge or look down on this person.
Yeah.
I have to come at it from a standpoint, because essentially I'm pretending to be him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that means you go into something, if you're living as that person in the film, then you can't be judging you can't be judging who you are
Right.
at the moment,
Yeah.
or looking down on who you are and doing it justice. That's where you wind up, like in some other projects, where you wind up with this caricature
Right.
instead of a real living person who's complex, who has positives, who has negatives, like we all do.
Right. Right.
And so I had to bring them down to a level of that basic level of what are we all have in common. We're human. We have emotions. Our upbringing affects who we are. No matter what anyone says, your environment and your upbringing has a lot to do with who you end up being.
Right.
You know, and then what you learn and mature and grow, if it's negative, then it's now up to you and your responsibility to change your foundation or, continue on with where that foundation led you. And so that's the aspect I had to come at it with, was to get all that out of my head, quiet all the noise, and then try to find the person in this, beyond just what we heard or beyond the image or beyond, just the ideology, who he was. I had to sit there and look at, that's why, like you made mention earlier, there are a lot of videos out there that you can find, but if you really, really dig deep, you'll find some candid videos.
Right.
That'll have you like, wow, I never even knew this video existed.
Right, yeah.
Or someone, like Daz Dillinger and others that I met that were around these guys, sending me links like, hey, this is a rare video.
Right.
That a lot of people don't, even know is out where they can see it, but check it out. And so little things like that. And then talking, the thing that helped me the most, besides the studying and watching the videos and reading articles, was talking to the people that was actually around these guys.
Right. Yeah.
They spent a lot of time with them, and some of them are still cool with Suge.
Right.
And then finding out, having them break down, because let me tell you, the people around him or the people that personally knew him have a different take,
I bet,
on him than the public does.
Sure.
So it's funny how we in the public, viewed Suge Knight is a lot different than what the people that were friends with him, or even people that were like, I don't like him, but they had spent time around him.
Right.
Even they have a different take on him as a person.
It makes sense. I mean, the Suge that sells things for other people is the one that hangs Vanilla Ice off a balcony. The one that loves kittens. No one needs that Suge Knight. Like, I mean, and I don't know if Suge does or doesn't like cats, but like that doesn't, I always say like peace doesn't sell, war sells. Donald Trump is popular to cover because it sells. We got porn stars on TV, and like they can't stop talking about it.
Right. Bill Clinton's like, oh, thank God.
Right.
For this guy. Because he's taking the cake all the way. So I had one. Trump is like, well,
I got bitches.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. That's like easy. He's like, Bill Clinton's like, I got a lot of bitches, and Donald Trump's like, I got much more. It's just straight
like, you think your scandal was bad? Yeah. Check this out. Yeah. I got porn stars.
Yeah, you let me know. He's like Fillmore Slim. He's like, see that string of bitches? Forget them. I got another one. Yeah, Donald Trump is definitely unique. But so let me get back to the Suge thing, because I want to actually, like, there's Daniel Day-Lewis who tries to become Lincoln. Mm-hmm. And it's throughout the entire process. And he's like, that's just so hard on me. I quit. I'm done acting. And then he's like, finds another role. He's willing to get back into that character. I don't think that's how you approach it. But at some point, you do have to turn off Suge, right? And I'm back to Dom because you're a good guy and you're not him. So how did you have to reckon with that? Or is that just something you're like, now I'm done. The camera's off. I'm back to me.
Yeah, no, I'm very conscious of what you turn on and what you turn off. I inadvertently learned that from Martin Lawrence, working on The Black Knight. And I remember when he came, because he's so, you see him sometimes in some roles where he's just so crazy and so just hilarious and, wild and out there.
Yeah.
And so you think that's, what this person is all the time, but then when you meet them in person and they're quiet and reserved and you're like, what?
Yeah.
this is not what I thought. This
Yeah.
is not who I thought he was. And so, and then seeing him, because I was at that time, because I was just an extra on that project. And so at that time, I'm still, trying to get started and get going. And growing up, a huge fan of Martin Lawrence and the Martin Show, etc.
Sure, yeah.
Is my family got together every Sunday. That was our thing. Watch Living Single and Living Color and Martin Show. Every Sunday, that was like our big weekly thing. So, it held a special place. So even just seeing him in person hit straight to the heart, like all those memories. So I was excited to be there, seeing him come on, and then him being completely different than what I thought as far as being quiet and reserved. He comes to set, and at that time in my life, I'm doing all what I thought, acting is serious and it's just dramatic, being a thespian, quote unquote.
I like to see that like Roger Rabbit. I'm a thespian!
Right. Exactly. Being all deep and
right.
I need to go off to a corner and just spend time to myself, falling into my character and, all that deep, pseudo deep crap.
Yeah.
And so Martin comes on and, he's being catered to by everyone, of course. And he's the big dog on set. So he comes up and I never forgot it. It changed my whole view on acting. He comes on, it's cold as hell. It's supposed to be like in the spring or summer, but it's February. It's like 30 degrees outside.
Yeah.
So we all have to take off all our jackets and, sit in the stands like we're warm. And so Martin has on a coat and he walks up, he literally puts his arms out, spreads his arms out side to side. Someone walks up behind him, pulls his jacket off of him. He puts his hands in front of him. Someone pulls his gloves off his hands. And then he just stands there rubbing his hands together. He thinks for a moment. And then he starts clapping his hands and jumping up and down, like getting himself hyped. And then he's standing there and the director's like, Mr. Lawrence, whenever you're ready, we're ready for you. And he's like, all right. And then it gets quiet. And he literally stands there maybe about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, just kind of, I guess he was thinking to himself or whatever, but he's standing by himself. He's supposed to be entering this scene. And I don't know, have you seen Black Knight?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So this was the scene where he was in the medieval time, and then he gets in the lake and comes back to modern time, and he's running all over the place, excited to see everybody going crazy.
Yes.
This is that scene.
Yeah, okay.
And so what you saw in the movie, how he's all over the place and hollering and just crazy, he started that scene out just standing there quietly, clapped his hands, jumped up and down for a second, went back to quiet, just standing there thinking.
Yeah.
And then he lifted his hand up and he said, I'm ready. And so I'm like, you're like, what scene is about to happen? Like, it seemed like it's going to be sad or something.
Yeah.
The director says, okay, they say rolling and, quiet on the set, background, and then action. And he goes from standing there quietly, he explodes. Eyes get big. Now he's running.
Yeah.
And he's going to the different stations, talking to the different actors and actresses. Excited to see it, just like you saw in the movie.
Yeah,
like he just got back from the medieval time.
I can see it in my head right now. Yeah.
And the way he exploded.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? This is a comedian at that. You know what I mean? This is not like an Oscar-winning actor. This is not to take away from it, because I think comedians are some of the best actors.
No, he's fantastic.
Actually. Yeah. But so it's a comedian, so their expectations aren't as high as, say, a Tom Cruise or a Will Smith.
Right.
But to see him explode like that, everything I thought about acting or what you're supposed to do to prepare for a scene or all that, that's crap. You know what I mean? That's crap for people to sound deep when they're teaching this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I just watched this guy, this comedian, literally stand there, clap his hands, sit there to himself for a second, and then it's like he just hit this switch.
Right.
And he exploded and did his job. And then once the scene was over, cut, he calmed back down, went back to his normal, how he came up.
Yeah.
Quiet and reserved. He literally has it down to a science to where he could just flip that on and off like a light switch. And I was like, that's good acting.
That's
when you can turn it off and on. And so going in relation to the Suge Knight question, that's the mentality I've had since whenever we did that, 06, 05.
Right.
I learned that stop taking myself too serious, or like some of these other super artistic, acting coaches or whatever. So, so now I have that in my mind. I trained myself to be able to turn it off and on, especially after Heath Ledger died.
Yeah.
When Heath Ledger died, he's not the first and the only that acting in a certain role has affected their personal life.
Yeah.
But he was one of the more extreme cases to where, he really dealt with some things after.
It's true.
I think after Brokeback Mountain and the Batman movie. And so it really showed me psychologically, we have to be careful as actors because we're playing with a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And depending on the role and how deep you have to go and what's involved with it, you don't know what's in that box.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's
Something
true.
like Heath Ledger playing the Joker, or even, as I said, playing in Brokeback Mountain. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you're a straight man playing a gay man who's hiding in the closet, so to speak. I didn't see the movie, but I understand the gist of it. To play that, and that is so far. I mean, you basically, to be that involved, kissing,
Yeah.
and, I don't know how many love
in
scenes
the
there
role.
were,
Yeah.
and all there. But it's like you really have to say, okay, I'm not gay, but right now I'm gonna have to be gay, live as gay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Especially
things
with
I
how
never
he
do.
approached acting. No, I think this is a great point because today, right now, the show we just put up is a author named Kat Connor. She's from New Zealand, and she writes. She knows these people in her head, and it's a multiple series of books, 10 plus crime novels, and when these people die, she grieves.
Oh, wow.
So
I can believe that.
Yeah, so if she can grieve because she knew these people that never existed, why wouldn't Heath develop some kind of psychological damage or pain of some kind? In my world, like the PTSD world, if you could see the wound, you would go, oh my God, I need treatment. Or, hey, go to the hospital or whatever, but we don't get to see those things.
Right.
And if you're already kind of wired through DNA or whatever to be more susceptible to that, like a Heath maybe was, you can get into a bad spot. I did want to go back and mention that I used to work at a TV station, a Christian, like a family broadcasting thing, and I would...
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69.
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
take the feeds down and put the shows up, like a fancy VCR guy, but I had all the feeds, and I worked Sunday nights, and so I would watch that thing, all those shows you were watching, Living Color, Rock, Martin. I watched that whole 2 or 3 hour block, and it was great. And I was by myself in a cold control room, so I would try to, I wouldn't necessarily dance like the Living, but I would be moving around because I had to be up and changing reels, and so I'd do all that. It brought back memories back to that. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. And that light switch, I think there's a lot of parallels between, again, combat guys, because when you, especially in the special operations side of things, when you get into something where there's what they call it a tick, troops in contact, that means people's actually shooting back. Mm-hmm. You go from riding at a 2, because you can't run around at an 8 or a 9 all the time. Right. You're on your job, you're alert, you're ready, and you ramp up, you ramp down. But when the shooting starts, you don't go to 10, you go to 25. Mm-hmm. And you take care of that threat as fast as possible. There's a switch. And you're like, okay, that's over. And then you turn the switch back off and you're back at 2. And it's physiological. Your heart rate goes down, your stress, all these things change because your environment has changed. And it's one of those situations where, as a professional, like you're saying, you have to have these. One of the ways to approach this is you have these tools that allow you to adapt your environment. Maybe Heath is a method actor; he has to dive all the way in, and that's how he gets there. But you're right; there's other ways to do this where you come in and get it done.
And he did. I can't remember what it was. I was watching yesterday. I ended up, because I was watching a lot of videos on producing and just looking at tips and advice from really popular and or famous producers who have done major things. And they got to talking about Heath Ledger. And 'cause I think it was the producer from the Batman series that was also there. It was like a round table. and they got to talking about Heath Ledger and, you know, what had happened to him and, you know, and I didn't even know, you know, like there was some new details the producer brought up that Heath had spent like almost a year like just isolating himself because he wanted to feel what the Joker would be feeling, you know. I guess either being locked up or I don't know if he meant being trapped in his own mind or what it was, but he spent a lot of time alone where people started getting worried about him. Yeah. You know, even before they shot the movie, like his family and friends. Finally, he broke out of that right before they started filming. They broke out of that right before he started filming. He would do things on set that were kind of loony. Yeah. You know, like he was really letting his mind go there. Like the scene, do you remember, you saw Dark Knight?
Sure, for sure.
Okay, so do you remember the scene where he's in the nurse's outfit outside walking away from the building and then it explodes?
Right.
So I was watching, they were talking about how Heath actually took the detonator and like the actual detonator he has, he wasn't supposed to have it, but he actually took the detonator and then he blew it up when he decided.
Wow.
It wasn't like the stunts had set it all up and they were getting prepared for it.
Right.
But when it went off,
that was him.
They didn't know when it was going to go off because he took the detonator.
Wow.
And they just kept rolling with it, and then he's the one who decided when it would blow up.
Yeah.
So when you see it in the movie and he clicks the button and it blows up, it's all him.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't work
scene
with him on, you know, hey, this is when we're going to do it.
Right.
We'll blow it up. You just signal or something. No, he just took it upon himself, took it. They were like, okay, filming, not knowing the wiser. And then he was like, boom, and blew it up because he felt like, you know, he commented to them afterwards, he felt like that's something the Joker would do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, on set.
It's like people could have died. You know what I mean? You remember that explosion?
Totally,
you saw it.
Yes, yeah. When you said that movie, that was what I pictured. Yeah. Without even thinking about Heath, that's, to me, the shot from that movie. You know, it's just, it's great.
Talking with a psychologist, friend of mine, and we were just talking about, because she was very interested in the psyche of actors. You know, and that, like I said, that Pandora's box that we play with.
Yeah.
Mentally. And so we were just going back and forth over how dangerous it really is for us actors, even if you don't play any super deep, crazy roles like Heath did, it's still really dangerous for us, especially once you start getting into the 10th project, 15th, the 20th. Yeah. And it's like you have all these different people that you've portrayed, all these different characters, all these different ways you've shifted your mind to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And then there's always a residue. You might be like, because even me, I'm very good about turning it on and off, but I'm not arrogant enough to believe that there isn't some residue from every single character involved. You know what I mean? Like I find myself, I don't live my life like I'm Suge Knight, and I don't.
What?
No, man. Gotta be Dominic. But I do find myself saying some sayings that have become part of my normal life that I wasn't saying before. You know, like push the line.
Yeah.
Or, you know, tighten up. You know, that was one of his favorite things to say. Yeah. And so I would use it a lot when somebody wasn't doing something I didn't like or wanted them to do, etc. in the movie or the show. And so over time, you know, now I find myself saying that to people, like, you know, not in anything negative, you know, but just, you know, I find myself telling, hey, tighten up. You know, I never used to say that.
It does create things. It does color you. I mean, when you're saying these things, I'm thinking about, like, my time as a spy. My job is to find the worst, most evil people on the earth. And I can't judge that. Does it sound familiar, right? Like, so I've got to go out and find a Suge Knight or someone worse, Charles Manson. And I've got to figure out how to, because the people that know where the bad shit's going to be, they aren't the saints. Right. It's the warlords, you know. So I've got to be approachable to them. And when I sit down with them, they can't see that I'm judging them. I've got to think about their psyche, you know, their schema, and I know that they're fucked in a lot of ways because they live in this horrible place. Yeah. And so they've had to make normal decisions that, from my point of view, if I allow it to be, are horrible.
Right.
You know, like you might beat your kid publicly to save your kid and your family's life from exposure because everybody has to see that performance of that violence so they know that you've tightened up.
Right.
My family's loose. Let me tighten them up for everybody. So you have to physically beat your kid. So now I'm talking to this person, and there's residue that absolutely sticks with you because you've talked to people. I talked to a guy literally, and he was laughing about how when he was shooting these kids for Saddam, right, and you're just, I'm acting.
Yeah.
I can't flinch. I got to be like,
inside you want to dive on this guy's neck.
Right, exactly. But that doesn't do anybody any good. So you withstand this wound, and like a lot of my soldier peers, they choose to end their lives, or they make lifetimes worth of bad decisions because they don't deal with the damage there, or they are unable to. And I don't presume to be better than them. So, someone makes a decision left or right, when they come back and maybe that ends up with them jumping off a bridge or whatever, you have to take that stuff seriously and account for it. So, I definitely can understand that and trying to wrestle with these monsters, because when you meet monsters, even if it's in your head, you've got to what is this monster? How do I become this guy?
Right. Even in the fictional
box.
characters, it is.
Yeah.
And it was funny. It wasn't until that conversation, and this was this year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until that conversation I never really thought about the psychological dangers of what we do. And we had this real epiphany kind of conversation where it was we were feeding each other, but hey, what about this? And then she was like, and this and that, and et cetera. And we're just talking, and I'm like, you know what? I hadn't really, I was always aware that there's probably some residuals left over.
Sure.
But I was like, I never felt in danger, or I never felt like I was doing something to my mind that could go left.
Yeah.
I never thought about that stuff, and no one teaches you that stuff.
No.
No one says, hey, what you're going into, it's a psychological thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Something you have to be careful. We wield it and throw it around like it's, we're like, it's our job. It's our 9 to 5. We clock in and clock out. That's how we look at it. But we don't look at it's better to know. It's better to know and know how to protect yourself than to just throw it around like a toy and, never really think about, this is something you have to give maintenance to, maintain. I'm actually, I was like, wow, I'm going to go start seeing a psychiatrist at some point. Not because I feel like anything's wrong with me,
right?
But just to kind of clear out the drawers, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Hey, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with me. I'm not doing anything crazy. Right. I'm not losing my mind or anything like that. But I just want to talk with a professional and make sure there's nothing in there that needs to be unwound, that I'm just kind of glossing over. That I don't want to pop up in the middle of the night. Wake up on a freeway holding a gun. Yeah. I was in the bed asleep. What just happened? Yeah. I don't know. You were shouting something about death row. Yeah. And you're out here in the middle of the freeway naked with a gun. This is not going to go good for you.
That's the mental health thing. Is you have to maintain it. And some people are fortunate that their mental health is such that doesn't really create a problem. But they also don't do what you do, where you're poke. Yeah. And as we get older, our brains don't work better.
Exactly.
Everything degrades. My elbow hurts more than it used to, and so it could be that there is an accumulation. So I think it's smart to at least consider that option. I am aware that people who get to be crazy don't necessarily start from crazy. So let's make sure that I stay on this path. I have to do it all the time. I have to constantly maintain my reality, which sounds weird, but I've been in the worst, most dangerous places ever, where there's bullets flying at my face.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right, and so I have to go, wait a second, hold on. I'm in Orange County. I have plenty to eat. I'm fine. That guy's on the phone because he's probably talking to his girl about what they're going to do tonight. He's not going to trigger.
Not talking about me.
Yeah, not going to trigger a bomb. Yeah, and Disneyland is a freak show for veterans in general. You've been because you can't control anything there. And I know my smart guy brain is they've got tons of security here. There's cameras everywhere. If there's a place that's safe, this is it. But my visceral brain, my lizard brain is what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And it's just...
Inside you're this is a cesspool for terroristic activities.
Right. What if? What if? Stop with the what ifs. You're in the happiest place on earth.
Especially with, from what it sounds like you were doing, it was preventative. Trying to prevent things from happening.
Yeah.
So being in places like that, you're preventative mind kicks in. Like
Yeah.
they think it's safe.
Yeah.
It always starts out safe.
Absolutely. Yeah. When the farmer, brings you medium rare pork from his pig that he's killed, you're like, I'm not eating medium rare pork. Yes, you are. That guy might know where the bombs are. He might know where the guy is who knows where the bombs are. You're every day. You're like, did I do enough today? Did I do enough? And your rubber band's always pulled tight.
I know. It's my father was military intelligence.
Yeah.
Until about he just retired about like 3 years ago.
Right.
And it's crazy because he's like super humble and doesn't hardly ever talk about things. I didn't find out at least like a piece of what he did, what he could talk about until a recent visit, like 2 months ago.
Right.
And I was like, dude, are you seeing somebody for this stuff? Like, and he couldn't even tell me like details or people and stuff, but it was like when he told me, the basics of what he did, I was like, that's what you did. Like you were in there with one other person in the middle of, where this stuff is originating. Yeah. Trying to find allies and people you could turn and all this other stuff. Anything could have went wrong at any moment. And it's just you and your partner. Yeah. There's no troops. There's no, you have, what did he call it? I think it was Delta or Delta Black or something. Like there was a team that if it got really bad, you'd have to call them and then they'd come flying in at some point. Hopefully you're still alive.
Hopefully, Hopefully you get the code right with those guys.
Right, yeah.
Because there literally is there's like a call and response. And so you think like years in advance, you think, okay, what's something that I'll remember no matter how fucked up I am. I've been beaten. I need something that I can mumble out good enough. Because they come in, ODA, bam, bam, they're killing people. They're reaping, to get you out. And they're going to bark something at you, And let's be honest, if it's like you or me sitting there, they're going to be like, that's clearly Dominic. It's a giant dude laying there. Let's get him out. They're not going to go, what was your first car you ever owned? You're like, it was a Malibu. Shoot this guy. It isn't like that. But you're right. There's heavy consequences. And there's no mountaintop. You come back the next day and you do it again. You come back the next day and you do it again. And you just don't know. Always, there's one of the reasons I got away from it is you always think about threat. You're always focused on threat. What's that threat? What's that threat? It gets ridiculous.
Yeah. And my point to even telling that story was my father, who I knew in the beginning, of course I was a child, was a complete different man than the man I've known most of my life. Because he's been a lifer. He's in the military. He had a whole career, like 33, 34 years, I think. Right. Completely different. And then, like, the main part of his career, he was like a robot. It was cold and, just wasn't emotional at all. But I didn't know what he was doing. No one knew. So all we knew was he was this way. Yep. And, it rubbed us the wrong way. Yeah. But, then now after all these years, he retires. And it's almost like he reverts back to that guy that I knew, from years ago as a kid. Yeah. And I watch him I have a 6-year-old son. And so I watch him with my son. And I'm like, dude, where have you been? For the last 30 years. Like, who's this guy, and then just how he was. I mean, he's, like before I left this last trip, he gave me a hug and kissed me on the cheek, and I was like, I love you. And I was like, you okay? Been out there, you've been outside in the heat.
I'm telling
because you. Because I just don't know that guy.
It's absolutely true because we have, it's almost like you have a full hard drive. Like emotional things, you've got to defrag it and reorganize it and attach another hard drive on, and nobody's got time for that. Yeah. So you're just at what you can do, and there are times absolutely when I'm 198% focused on the task at hand. I'm talking 36 hours in a chair, having food brought to me, just so I can stay on task on this one thing because it's changing by the minute. And so 36 hours goes by, and you're like, you come out of it, and you're like, fuck, Jesus Christ, what day is it? And they're like, oh, dude. And then nothing happens. That's the other thing. It's like you're on and like you can't leave because if you leave, it's like everything's in my head right now and I can't get it out. It's crazy and it's life or death stuff. You're trying to put together a targeting package. That target is a human and I don't want to have that person get killed because I'm like good enough, and then go sell it to the commander because you always have to sell it to the commander. It's a sales job. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got that. And you give them enough things, they're like, that guy dies. Basically, and it doesn't go down exactly like that, but that's what happens. I do what you mean. 7 dudes, 10 dudes, 100 dudes, whatever, are going to go somewhere. Someone's going to make something evil happen, you want to get it right, you know?
Yeah.
We're running so low on time, we haven't even talked about your new stuff. All right, so I want to change gears because we talked about the Suge thing, and then we talked about a whole bunch of other crap. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up. You've got to, so like any actor, you're like, I've got to have more tools in the shed. So you write, and now you're getting into producing, and you've got a couple projects on the burner coming up. What you can talk about, let's talk about that, and give us an idea what else Dominic is doing.
The first thing is me and my producing partner, Chase and Beecham. We've teamed up with a great organization called Zoe Helps, and it's ZOE, and it's an acronym.
Okay.
But it's called Zoe Helps, and they have a few different programs going on around the world in different countries. We're going to the Kenya leg, and we're going to shoot a documentary about their program, but it's not a PSA to glorify them.
Right.
They're an example of the overall tone of the documentary is about charity and donating and what your dollars are really doing and the proper and improper ways to donate.
Gotcha.
Because charity, just like any other business, just like you give money in church, just like, if people take advantage of see people giving away money.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of wolves that always jump into the mix. And the problem is a lot of people don't realize who the wolves are anymore.
Right.
And so you can end up giving, and a lot of charitable organizations, I think statistics show like 10 to 20% actually makes it to who you're donating for.
Right.
And it's like, well, where's the rest of that, 80% of money?
Yeah.
Where's that going?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And granted, companies have to, if they have overhead, they have to take care of it.
Sure.
But then, there's no reason a CEO of a 501(c) company should be making $3 million a year and have a private jet, etc. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but that's happening. So we're doing a documentary about that, and then Zoe is a perfect example of, every cent of what you're donating really affecting someone and affecting them for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
So Zoe doesn't go in and just give food. Matter of fact, you're not allowed to give the kids anything. But what they have is a program that they work with leaders in Kenya on the ground. So it's not just they show up, people get some help right then, but when they leave, it's over.
Yeah.
No, this is actually, they don't come in and we're the Americans here to save the day.
I have the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
They come in and they work with the local leaders who are there 24/7 every day of the year, working in these programs, and they work with them and they come back and forth. It's not the Americans. They're not pushing that mantra of, here comes the Americans to save you for a moment, and then we leave after we feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
We post up pictures on social media, look at the great we're doing.
The photo op.
Right, and you only receive help 2 weeks out of the whole year.
Right.
Instead, what they do is they have programs where they take orphan children. They either lost their parents by, AIDS, warfare, whatever.
Some tragedy, right?
Or their parents just left them. And a lot of these kids end up beggars. And because there's a lot of organizations that come over and just hand out food and aid, like I said, for a week or two. And so they've got it in their minds to, the more you beg, the more you can get.
Yeah.
So it's created this beggar mentality
Right.
that the African people, especially in Kenya, they hate it.
Yeah.
And so they're very big on trying to change that mentality in these kids, because once their parents are dead or whatever happens to them, they usually end up, it's usually never a one-child scenario.
Right.
That happens, but it's more times than not kids with siblings. So these kids, the oldest one ends up the patriarch or the matriarch of the family, and they have to stop going to school or whatever they're doing and go work or go steal or go be prostitutes, you know, things like that. Like even the culture of rape over there, for example, is they're having to teach them that this is wrong. You don't just feel like it's bad.
Right.
It is bad.
It is bad.
And you not only should tell someone, but here, you have someone you can go tell now.
Right.
So when this happens to you, you should tell. And they're teaching them all those things like that. They teach them how to be business owners, on their scale, entrepreneurs, and even little micro banking systems that they can loan their friends. They go start making money, then they can micro bank and loan their friends money to go and start their own little business and make a piece of it. So they're becoming productive members of society who end up hiring their friends end up teaching their brothers and sisters to do the same. And, years later, they revisit with them. It's a 3-year program. And they revisit with them and see them, they're doing well, selling stuff on the market. They're doing, they're living.
Yeah.
And their goal to them, balling is you eat every day.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's balling to them. Like, if you eat once a day, but you eat every day, you're the baller in the community.
Yeah, I've definitely worked in that world where we come in with solutions, and everybody gets a backpack and a soccer ball, and they're like, all right, great. Well, I was here the next day, and some dude came around and stole every backpack, or demanded, every backpack. Really? And it's easy to screw that stuff up because you don't stay, or you're not associated with the local leaders who are the government. They are the security. So
exactly,
for sure. And I guess I should say this too, like, we're officially aligned with Charity on Top. They're a portal for all charity giving, at least within like the 501c3 registered companies, and you can look at them, they're ranked and everything. But if anybody wants to contribute, you can always go and either to our main page and just contribute money. We'll push it towards the charities, or you can go in and put in towards Zoe. Like, I'll put a link on your episode where people can go in and give, because it's everything we do, right? Little charity on top. So you go buy a Starbucks, here, I got $1, for some kid, or 50 cents, just automatic. Like, you would save money, also donate to charity, and that's what these ladies are trying to do. It's a really cool program. So that's Zoe. You guys are doing a movie about what happens with them?
Oh, yes. We're going over there. We're shooting a documentary that's going to house, I guess, 3 aspects. It's going to be I've never been to Africa.
Right.
I've never seen that stuff in person for myself, so that's going to be a hell of an experience.
Hell yeah.
Also because traditionally it's white people who come over there. They have it in their mind that anytime they see anyone white come over, they assume 2 things. This is from them. They assume they're American, and they assume they're really wealthy. And so, they were excited about me coming because they were like, they were like, we're not trying to be funny. It was like, no, I get
twice
it.
a day.
They're not trying to be funny, but they're not used to seeing Black Americans coming over who are well off and doing something, and had a rough start, And so they said they're really gonna freak out when they see you, because even though I'm half Puerto Rican, half Black, so I have curly hair, and have the look that I have, but they would still associate me with a minority, and the fact that it's like they're not used to seeing minorities not be in the position they're in.
Right.
So that, they were like, they will love that, and we will love that, because then they get to see someone who somewhat resembles them, coming with us.
Absolutely.
So they can see it's not just because their mentality is, in this world, all white people are wealthy, and all Black people are poor. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Because that's what they see, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it is the world. I mean, when I'm talking to folks who are in these kind of predicaments, the dudes don't have a dream mechanism. And think about how, and I literally mean they cannot dream, because there is nothing better than what they have. And if it is eating twice a day, like, that's even impossible. So they can't imagine a you. Where you show up and you're like, I have money, I'm here to help, and I can understand you can be something else. It's it's a barrier that I couldn't get over as easily as you can. Like, I could show up, I can have the most benevolent, wonderful heart and try to give everything I can to help, but there's still certain things you have to deal with. Yeah, so that's a fantastic endeavor. What else is on the burner for you guys?
We're doing that, and then when we get back from that, we're doing a film called Vacation.
Okay.
With a B. There's a popular hashtag that's been used for years called vacation.
Yeah.
Describing going on a vacation with your boo or your honey or whatever. So we adopted that hashtag. We're not ashamed to admit that. For marketing purposes.
Sure.
When
that's
we
why
drop
they have
it.
hashtags.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when it comes out, it'll kind of take over that already going hashtag and move units. But we're filming that movie called Vacation. When we get back, it's an interesting, different kind of movie. I'm the type I like to push barriers.
Nice.
Try new things. Hollywood has formulas. The only problem with those formulas are they've gotten old. Audiences have gotten very familiar with those formulas. So it's gotten harder and harder to trick the audience or for them not to predict what's going to happen, which of course hurts revenue.
Yeah.
Because then people are less excited to see a movie that they already like, well, it's going to go this way, that way.
Right.
So this movie, Vacation, has two major shifts in the movie from genre. So it's going to be hard, almost like Get Out. It's not the same as Get Out, way different story. But that as far as how they struggled with Get Out, of like, what category do we put this in? It's not the usual formula.
Right.
So normally we go here, here, or here. We can't do that. So it's kind of the same thing where they're going to be like, all right, where do we put this? Comedy, horror, action, thriller, where do we put this?
Right.
So, which I love. I love because it's a great movie. It's formulated really well, how we take it step by step. So we don't just jerk you this way and then have you confused.
Right.
It's everything makes sense.
That's cool
when you're in it.
Yeah.
But it just switches up so much from the Hollywood norm that I think people are going to really resonate with it. And I think they're going to be excited about it because it's like, this, I had no clue this movie was going to turn into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's the great thing about it. And it's a diverse cast.
Nice.
So
That's
the comedy portion comes in from the intermingling of, you have this white family and then these two black couples.
Yeah.
And then this Hispanic guide. And so the guide is coming in and out doing crazy shit.
Yeah.
And but the two, people, they double book into this one place. And so now they have to find a way. They're stuck on this island. They have to find a way to get along.
Yeah.
And so then you have the stereotypes and you have everything else that has to get dealt with as far as racial relations. And so they don't mix at first, and then they find common ground. So it's like attacking all the stereotypes.
Yeah.
And not the ridiculous ones, but ones that are real everyday life. My writing partner and my producing partner, he's white. And so the funny thing is, our conversations on certain jokes and certain things where he's like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, because you're white.
Yeah, because you're white.
And he'd say, oh, we got to throw this in there. And I'm like, I don't get it. Yeah. It doesn't seem funny to me.
You're black.
Right. He's like, you're black. This is in your world. Y'all don't do this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So
man, that's so funny.
That understanding and just putting that together, and then where they find common ground, where you realize, because the lesson, and it's not a whole movie about lessons, but the lesson in that one part is, if you take the time and put in the energy to try to find a common place and some common ground, you'll realize the stereotypes really don't mean shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're all human beings. And if you just put some energy toward, hey, I don't know you, but I'm willing to get to know you and about you and your culture, you realize, we have a lot of similarities and we have a lot of differences that we can actually sit and laugh about, and not use them as weapons against each other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I had to go get shot at to learn that. But you're right, though. It's my dad, before he passed, he and his wife, they were married. They were a mixed racial couple. And I got to go to what I'm just going to call Black Family Christmas. And I'm a white dude, and I'm an adult.
I'm sure that was very different for you.
Yeah, totally. And it's not like, there's no fear, but there is a dude riding around on a beach cruiser with a brown paper bag. And I'm like, I keep seeing that guy. Is he lost? And then I realized, oh, shit, he's working. Like, Christmas is not a day where you get to be off if you sell drugs. And I'm like, God damn, that's right. This is a different world. And then you go inside, all the figurines for Christmas, they're all black. And I know that intuitively, but there they are. And I'm like, everything here is still a little bit different. But then it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, the things he plays the piano. So we played some Christmas carols and everybody sang. I'm like, this is the same. Food's maybe a little different, but it's the same, and it's all these things, but it all worked out fine. It was all different. This is the thing I learned about culture is being uncomfortable because you're intersecting, not colliding, but intersecting cultures. That means you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not supposed to feel comfortable. It's just to be like, oh, this is a little weird. It's like an ill-fitting jacket, but I think actually I could rock this jacket,
right.
Maybe. But you got to accept that there's going to be some, not discomfort, but miscomfort.
Yeah.
Where it's just a little left of right, and then you realize, like you said, it's a rule that I've applied all the time. Iraq, Afghanistan, anywhere, everybody loves kids. Yeah. Nobody wants cancer.
Right.
All these things are common things. So you just find those common grounds, and you can start to understand somewhat. A Suge Knight, a little better, you know?
And you expand.
Yeah.
Like when you open your mind, I love that, you know, and I've been that way since I was a kid because of, you know, there were times where, you know, 1 minute I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina at Fort Bragg, you know, where there's plenty of black people and a bunch of other races, you know, and so I was fortunate. I was a little sheltered from racism, so to speak, for a little while because you've been military. You know, there's no time, there's no space for that racial shit.
Right, yeah.
You know, and that's how it was at Fort Bragg. You know, that's a huge military base, so it affected all the life in Fayetteville.
Sure. And,
you know, kids couldn't really do the whole, you know, oh, you're this, you're that, because that kid's father might be your father's CO.
Yeah.
You know, and word would get back sometimes when things like that would happen, and the parents would get involved. Like, you know, look, you little bastard.
Yeah.
You got my CO raining hell on me because you're fucking with his kid.
Yeah.
Like, cut it out.
Knock it off.
We don't do that racial shit. So it's that culture in Fayetteville. So you don't really deal with it. Everyone's equal. But then you move from there and you go to a place where the majority of everyone is either Mexican or white, and you're one of the sprinkled few of the black kids. And then now you're being introduced to two sides of racism, you know, because there are Hispanics that also don't like black people for whatever reason. And then there's whites that don't like them, you know,
and there's
for whatever
not that
reason.
overriding net like the military. It's like, hey, we got a bigger mission here. Because that's also the home of Delta Force, a whole lot of special forces people. And they're doing high-end shit. They don't got time, but you don't have that in the real world.
Yeah, so I got that in the real world. But my point is that you opening yourself to learn, just as there's things that are awkward from my race to your race, there are some things you're like, why do they do that? You know, the same reason we sit back and go, why in the hell would you do that? You know, it's weird to me. But then there's also that really good, juicy part. You bring along benefits of things from your culture that expand me when I open up to it, and vice versa. Because I can learn, and there's things you might know, or there might be a way you do something that's better than the way I know how to do it. And it's like, thank God I started talking to you, because now I know that. You know, you were able to share something with me that helped make me better.
My hometown is a very white-centric place, but we live right next door to a place that's one of the most racially diverse cities in America, right? It's Vallejo and Benicia. Benicia's small, so Vallejo had the theaters, and when you go there and you see a movie in a black theater, you learn, like, oh shit, this is hilarious. Like like I didn't know this was going to be interactive movies.
I was about to say a lot of talking during the movie.
And so my kids and my daughter and then my nieces, we all went to go see the Purge. Is that what that show is called? The Purge, or whatever. You know, like when everybody gets to go crazy for one night. It was a younger, more urban crowd, and they were doing the interactive theater thing, and my nieces and my daughter were getting aggravated, and I'm like, oh shit, you guys don't know. I'm like, no. This is an awesome way to watch a movie. Just don't mind them. They're part of the show. So just enjoy it. And then it's like,
black people immerse in the whole experience.
Enjoy how much they're enjoying it. You know?
Since the 70s, it's like it should be clear by now that we have not discovered that the people in the movie cannot actually hear you.
I think after that, because I think it's hilarious, man. I love how people get into it. I've had an hour, actually I've had more than an hour, but you've been awesome. I want you to feel welcome to come on anytime you want to talk about a project, because man, what you're doing is awesome.
Thank you.
You're talking about huge things. I mean, the mental health issue with the acting. I mean, who has ever talked about that? You know, and going to Africa and helping people there and just breaking down cultural barriers. You know, I mean, all that shit, man. That's good. Thank you for doing all of it.
Thank you. Hey, I appreciate you for having me, and just trying to do my little part on this rock.
All right. Fair enough.